Good morning, Your Honor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Mr. Sullivan is going to be making announcements on the state's calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, everyone. We are streaming live via YouTube. My name is Judge Tamika West Bernard. I am presiding over the preliminary hearing calendar for this morning. As I call the calendar, please make your announcements. The first case we have on the calendar is the state of Georgia versus Joshua Lee Adams.
The state's ready, Your Honor.
Okay.
And good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Lane, on behalf of Mr. Adams, Mr. Holton Dennis, we're ready for hearing as well.
Okay, Mr. Lane, thank you. Position 4, I have the state of Georgia versus Lydia Afua. I don't know if that's been accused. Last name is spelled Afoakwah. First name is Lydia, Lydia.
Your Honor, the state's announcement is that those cases have been received.
Okay. Position 6, the state of Georgia versus Barelo Pedro A. Amador. Is the state ready?
Those cases have been received, Your Honor.
Okay. Position 8, the state of Georgia versus Bobby Lee Banks.
The state's ready.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mark Lane with Mr. Holton Dennis on behalf of Mr. Bobby Banks. We're ready for hearing.
I have 2 charges from Mr. Banks, correct? Criminal trespass and obstruction of a law enforcement officer.
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay. Position 10, state of Georgia versus Desmond Lamar Brown. State ready?
Your Honor, that case has been received, as has the next one with the same defendant, position 11.
Okay. Position 12, state of Georgia versus Jana Burtston.
State's ready, Your Honor.
Your Honor, Mr. Holton Dennis continues to be listed as the attorney of record for Ms. Burston. I've spoke with her mother twice. This was on the calendar 2 weeks ago for prelim, and it was continued. Her mother tells me that Ms. Tiffany Burston tells me that she's hired an attorney, Marcus Dickerson, to represent her daughter, and I don't see where he's formally enrolled to in the case. So been a couple of weeks since then, so I called back her mother back to confirm what's going on, and she told me yesterday that Mr. Marcus Dickerson had been hired, she'd paid him, and that he was on the case and was aware that we were having court again this morning at 8:30.
Okay. Let's do this. I'll circle back around before we close out the calendar to see if Mr. Dickerson, Miss Mary, do you have a notice of appearance for Mr. Attorney Dickerson?
No, we do not.
Oh. Okay, I didn't hear you.
No, we do not.
Okay, what's the what will be the reset date for that?
July 19th.
July 19th?
July 18th, I'm sorry.
July 18th, okay. So we'll tentatively reset that for July 18th of 2023. If he appears before the call of the calendar, then we'll move forward.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yes.
This is Officer Rutherford. I was the arresting officer from Miss Yana Burston. Was there you just moved the court case to the 19th?
Well, no, to the 18th, but just hold tight. Let me finish calling the calendar.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Position 15, State of Georgia versus D'Angelo Sherrod Daniels.
The state's ready.
Your Honor, Jonah Reisman, Lister Holton Dennis, on behalf of Mr. Daniels, will announce ready as well.
Okay. Thank you. Position 20, the State of Georgia versus Sandra Jasmine Gucci. State ready?
Your Honor, the name of the defendant that my calendar shows is Bernard Pokum Fopa, last name spelled F-O-P-A. And that person is out on bond.
Okay, I don't have that one on my calendar. Maybe that's because they were removed. They likely were removed from the calendar because they were out on bond. So my number 20 is Gucci. Are you ready to proceed forward with that case? It's G-O-O-C-H.
That case has been received, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
Yeah.
is there an accusation number on Miss Gooch? If not, and I believe I would sit there and have to just announce ready on that, because I mean, I believe it'd be my client's right to still proceed with a hearing if it actually has not been accused yet. And further, there is still shows a pending warrant on the clerk site, 09248. So I just kind of wanted to know the status of that one as well.
I actually only have the two. I think one was dismissed. I believe 48 was dismissed. So I'll clarify that before we have a hearing. But I do know that there was definitely a warrant for 092 is 2023WA099246 and then 2023WA099247. So I do know, and I believe the third, it was a simple, I want to say a simple battery charge may have been dismissed, but I'll clarify that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Mary, can you look that up for me? I believe it's the one we discussed earlier.
When we finish the calendar.
I'm sorry?
When we finish the calendar.
Yes, yes. I'm not certain. I think someone's supposed to be reaching out to Judge Thorpe. That's the.
That warrants on the calendar, 246 and the 247.
Okay, you don't have 48, correct?
Okay.
Okay, so no 48. Okay. And you said you'll be ready to go. The state, would you be ready to go on that one?
My notes show that the solicitor's office has received the file, but I don't think it's been accused yet, Your Honor.
Okay.
This is accused, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, Solicitor Brooks.
It's accused.
Okay, according to Solicitor Brooks, it's accused, Attorney Sullivan.
Do you have an accusation number for that, Mr. Brooks?
'23 CR 04624.
Okay, can you give us that again, a solicitor?
Yeah, it's yes, ma'am. It's 23 CR 04624.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
thank you. Position 22, the State of Georgia versus Jerry Lee Hammonds. State ready?
Yes, Your Honor, state's ready.
Hey,
Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. Hammonds, I'll announce ready, although I did try to go meet with him this past Friday, and he refused to speak and said that he was refusing counsel. So I don't know how you wanted to proceed on that, if you wanted to ask him if he wanted to retain us as his attorney or not.
I can ask them. So deputies, when I finish calling the calendar, you will have Mr. Hammonds available.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Position 424, State of Georgia versus Nesby Jermaine Jackson. State ready?
Your Honor, I believe that that case is going to be transferred to the district attorney's office because there's a felony charge involved.
Yeah, and so rather than a transfer, Your Honor, we asking that to get reset to the felony calendar. Felony calendar.
Okay. Ms. Mayor, can you give me the felony date for to move Jackson to?
July 17,
I didn't hear you.
July 17.
Okay, thank you. So it's gonna be reset to July 17, which will be our felony calendar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Position 26, we have State of Georgia versus Keandre King. The state ready?
That case has been received, Your Honor. But I don't believe it's been accused yet.
Okay,
Your Honor, if it's not been accused yet, then I would announce ready on behalf of Mr. King. Similar situation as to Ms. Gooch. He had 4 warrants in the system. 2 of them were for the same thing. 2 of them were saying pending as well. I just wanted like to know the status of those.
okay, I have I have the 2 warrants, which is 52464 interference with custody. And then the second one would be 52465 contributing to the delinquency of
Seeing CR right here.
I'm sorry, Solicitor Brooks, you said it has been accused?
It has, Your Honor.
Okay, I think he would like probably the CR number, the case number.
Yes, please.
It's 23 CR 46 04625.
Okay. Thank you. Position 28, we have the State of Georgia versus Knight Nigel Raheem King. Is the state ready?
Is Officer Richards, Crystal Richards, present?
She's in the waiting room. I just noticed her pop in, so I can admit her. Looks like she's available.
Well, the state's ready, Your Honor.
Your Honor, excuse me, Your Honor, the inmate is on loan.
Oh, the inmate is on long? Okay, so we'll need to reset that.
That was going to be my announcement, Your Honor. I believed he was on loan still. I just wanted to let the court know.
So do you want to do 2 weeks out, Miss Mary, or is that July 7th, July 18th?
It'll have to be July 18th. We can't do 2 weeks out.
Okay. So that'll be reset for July 18th. And I believe Officer Richards, does he have another case?
Your Honor, I don't think Officer Richards has any other cases other than that one that was listed.
Okay, thank you. So Officer Richard will be free to go.
Thank you.
Mhm. Position 31, State of Georgia versus Coleman Perry Nelson. State ready?
Your Honor, that case has been received.
Okay, I'm assuming the Attorney Lane, you have the same position.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Pat Gensler for Lister Holton Dennis, and I do have an accusation number for that case.
Oh, you do? Okay. Can you give it to us, please?
2023 CR 4627.
Okay. Thank you. Position 31, State of Georgia versus Coleman Perry Nelson. State ready?
And Judge,
Your Honor, that case has been received.
was that the one we just discussed? I'm sorry, maybe I got those wires crossed.
I'm sorry, number 30, the previous one was Nigel Raheem. I'm sorry, Nigel Raheem King. Last name is King.
Yeah, that accusation number then that I gave you was incorrect. The one that I gave you was for Coleman Nelson. I apologize.
Okay. So do you have one for King?
Your Honor, King is the inmate that was on loan.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, position 35, I have the State of Georgia versus Samuel Zach Puckett Jr. State ready?
Well, that case has been received, Your Honor.
Okay.
And Judge Pat Gensler, again, do you want the accusation number for that case as well?
Yes, please.
23 CR 4629.
Okay. Thank you. Position 37, the State of Georgia versus George Richard. Is the state ready?
That case has been received, Your Honor. Mr. Brooks.
Judge, again, Pat Gensler with Lister Holton Dennis. The accusation number on that case is 2023 CR 4630.
Okay. Position 38, the State of Georgia versus Tyrese Marquis Simon. The state ready? Attorney Sullivan?
Judge, this is Pat Gensler. There's an accusation number for Mr. Simon, so it's been received through the state court as 23 CR 4631.
Okay, thank you for having me move along the calendar. I appreciate it. Thank you. So that will conclude the calling of the calendar, preliminary hearing calendar for this morning. Is there anyone present that did not hear their name called or their client's name called? Okay, so it looks like we're ready to proceed forward with our first hearing of the day. Is going to be the State of Georgia versus Joshua Lee Adams. Mr. Sullivan, you ready or you need, oh, I'm sorry, real quickly, Deputy, I need to speak with the previous defendant that was refusing counsel. 1 minute.
That was Hammond, correct, Your Honor?
I believe so, yes.
Wall. Get on the wall right now. Right. Face the wall, face this way. No. Hey. Oh, okay. There you go.
Okay, good morning. Sir, my name is Judge Tamika West Bernard. I'm presiding over the preliminary hearing calendar for this morning. Can you state your full name for the record for me?
Jerry.
Okay, full last name?
Hammond.
Mr. Hammond, I have you on my preliminary hearing calendar this morning for two warrants. The first one is unlawful conduct during a 911 call and obstruction of a law enforcement officer. And we had your attorney of record here ready to represent you. Are you prepared to speak with him today about your case? You say no, Mr. Hammonds?
I don't want to call, so the lady just gave me 20 days.
Okay, who gave you 20 days?
The lady said I get out June, July 21 of them days.
Okay, but you still will have to address the charges. So do you want to speak with him to see if he could work out something?
He said that was a misdemeanor charge.
I know, but we still have to address them.
I
So
said,
they
I still get out, right, though?
Well, I'm not certain about, I guess, your pending release. I just know that I have these two cases on my calendar that will need to be addressed today, either through your current attorney, Mr. Reisman, or another attorney, or if you elect to proceed pro se, that's you're right. But I would advise you to speak to your attorney of record.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that.
So you don't want to, don't leave, sir. Don't leave.
Get back. Still in court.
Okay, so you say you don't want to speak with anyone right now. Would you like me to, are you thinking about seeking another attorney, sir?
I don't really need no attorney. Lady said I get out on the 20th. No, it's the other. Yeah.
Take him out.
This is judge, sorry.
Yeah, I'm not certain who gave you that information, sir, but even if you're released, you still will have the charges that you will need to have a defense counsel for. Do you understand that? Do you understand that, Mr. Hammonds?
No.
I just want to make sure you have adequate representation. So even if you're released, you still will have to address the charges. The charges will still be pending, so they still will need to be resolved one way or the other.
So we mean one release.
Yes, the charges will still need to be addressed by you. Because it's my understanding that the state is proceeding forward with prosecution of those charges, so you'll need defense counsel. Do you understand that, sir?
I don't want to talk about. I'm straight.
Okay. Oh, let me say, well, no, sir, I'm not finished. I'm not finished.
Don't walk away. Don't walk away.
Okay, so you say you don't want to speak. Would you like me to continue the case to see if you will want to retain other legal counsel?
No, I'm good.
I'm sorry, sir.
No, I'm good. You gonna get it here, bro.
Okay, so let me be clear. So are you refusing legal counsel at this time?
I don't want. I'm straight.
Okay, so you plan to proceed for a pro se, sir?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, you plan to represent yourself in these two charges?
I already played guilty to the shit. Watch your mouth, sir.
Okay, well, you haven't had an arraignment yet if you're on my prelim calendar. So again, would you like to speak to your attorney about your plea?
No.
Or you want to wait? Do you want to waive your preliminary hearing?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, do you want to speak with your counsel about that before you waive?
No.
Okay, so and you're not represented by counsel currently besides Mr. Reisman, is that correct?
Okay.
Okay, do you understand what waiver means?
Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
tell me what it means.
I mean, I ain't want to do it.
Okay, you don't want a hearing? Okay, are you willing to sign a waiver form from the deputy waiving your preliminary hearing?
I can.
Okay, so if you're willing to sign a waiver form, then I can move it to bound it over to the state court. You understand that?
No.
I can transfer the case to state court, and then you can seek counsel on the two charges. You understand that?
Okay, I need somebody.
I'll sign it though.
Okay, but do you understand you still need legal counsel, sir? Or you're gonna have to represent yourself. Do you understand those two different things?
Okay.
So you still will need legal counsel. Do you understand that?
I plead guilty, just give me the time and just get it over with.
Okay. Okay, so sign the waiver form and then I can transfer the case to state court, okay? You understand that? You understand that, Mr. Hammonds?
Yeah.
Yes, sir?
Yeah.
Are you through him, Your Honor?
Yes, Deputy, you have a waiver form for him to sign?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammond.
Over there, sir.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we're ready to proceed forward with the first case on the calendar, the state of Georgia versus Joshua Lee Adams. The state will be, Attorney Sullivan, do you need a few minutes or you're ready to go?
You want me to fill it out?
Sign it.
And deputies, I'm sorry, will you bring forward Joshua Lee Adams?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes,
Ma'am.
sir.
are we finished with Officer Relaford? I believe that case was either continued or moved on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, 1 minute. Yeah, it doesn't appear that Attorney Dickerson has appeared, so we'll reset that case for July 18th of 2023. So he's free to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, who was that inmate again that you needed?
Joshua Lee Adams.
Adam. Joshua Lee Adam.
Okay. And Attorney Sullivan, you're ready to go?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. 1 minute, let me pull the file.
And probably you put out, what's his name?
Your Honor, also the case with Hammonds, when he signed the waiver, I see her Officer K. Smith on here. I don't believe she has any additional cases as well.
What's her name?
Officer Smith on the matter of Jerry Lee Hammonds. I believe he just signed a waiver.
Okay, so yes, she's free to go. Officer Smith. Officer Smith, you're released to go. He's gonna waive the preliminary hearing. Did you hear me, Officer Smith? Okay, thank you. We are ready to go with the first hearing of the day. I'm officially calling the state of Georgia. 1 minute, please. I'm officially calling the state of Georgia versus Joshua Lee Adams for warrant numbers 2023 WA 09186 for possession of marijuana less than an ounce. I have a second warrant identified as 2023 WA 09187 for use and possession of drug-related items. And then a third warrant of 2023 WA 09188 for a charge of giving false name, address, and date of birth to a law enforcement officer. We do have the defendant, Mr. Adams, appearing live via Zoom at the Clayton County Jail. He will be represented by Attorney Mark Lane, and the state of Georgia is represented by Attorney James Sullivan. Please proceed forward with your case, Attorney Sullivan.
Yes, Your Honor. Officer Parks, please raise your right hand. Can you, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please put your hand down. What is your name?
It's Officer Jeremy Parks with the Clayton County Police Department.
And are you with the Clayton County Police Department today?
Yes, sir.
And were you with the Clayton County Police Department on May the 27th, 2023?
Yes, sir.
On that day, did you have occasion to interact with the defendant, Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what brought you into contact with him?
Yes, sir. I pulled over a vehicle driven by Miss Melissa Neese in the area of Mount Zion Boulevard and Richardson Parkway. She had no tag light, so I made a vehicle stop. And as I was speaking with the driver, I just as a matter of habit, I asked the passenger for his identification as well. He stated that he didn't have his identification on him. I said, that's okay. You can just give me your name and date of birth. And he provided me with the name Brian Adams and a birthday of May 22nd, I believe.
Was that incorrect information?
It was. His name is actually Joshua Adams with the date of birth of, I believe it's January 22nd.
What else did you do as part of your investigation in that traffic stop?
So initially, the name Brian Adams and the birthday he gave me an incorrect year for Brian Adams' birthday. So we were having trouble getting his name and information to come back on GCIC. So I went ahead and pulled him out of the vehicle because whenever we can't get someone's information to come back on GCIC, either I've spelled it wrong or they're lying to me. So I went ahead and pulled him out of the vehicle so I could get some more information from him. And as I got him out of the vehicle, I asked him, do you have anything illegal on you? And he said, no. And I said, do you mind if I search your pockets? And he said, go ahead. And at that time, I went in his pockets, and in his right front pocket, I found a bag containing 4 grams of what I believe to be marijuana and 3 unused hypodermic needles. At that point, I went ahead and detained Mr. Adams. And I was going to charge him with providing false name and DOB anyway, because he gave me an incorrect year. When we found out the correct year for Brian Adams, we determined that Brian Adams had a warrant for his arrest. And I believe that's why he was lying to me. As we were in the back of as I put him in the back of my patrol car and was doing my arrest paperwork, he said, if I tell you a different name, am I getting the same charges? And I said, yeah, I mean, you're getting the charges regardless, so you might as well tell me the truth at this point. And he's like, okay, my name is actually Joshua Adams. I don't want my brother to get extra charges because of me. And that's when he gave me the correct name and date of birth of Joshua Lee Adams. Date of birth is 1/22/92. And it turns out the correct Mr. Adams also had a warrant for his arrest.
And based on your interaction with the defendant, did you arrest him for possession of less than an ounce of marijuana?
Yes, sir.
And did you arrest him for possession of drug-related objects?
Yes, sir.
And likewise, did you arrest him for giving you a false name and date of birth?
Yes, sir.
Based on your education, training, and experience, what made you think that the objects he had were drug-related?
Because when I was talking to Mr. Adams, just as a question, I noticed that he had some sores on his face consistent with methamphetamine use. The driver was also extremely nervous. Mr. Adams was also extremely nervous, and I thought there might be some drugs in the car. But when I was asking him, I said, Mr. Adams, I'm sorry. Mr. Adams, are you diabetic? And he said, yes. And I said, what type diabetes do you have? And he said, what? I said, which type is it? And he goes, there's types. I said, Mr. Adams, when was the last time you used methamphetamine? And he was like, a couple days ago. And I said, do you smoke it or shoot it? And he said, I shoot it. That's what made me believe that the hypodermic needles were methamphetamine related.
So based on your investigation, did you arrest the defendant on those charges?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further of this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Attorney Lane, your witness.
All right, good morning, Officer Parks.
Good morning.
So let's back up here. You first encountered the driver, Melissa Neese. She was the driver of the vehicle that Mr. Adams was a passenger in.
That's correct.
Over because for busted taillights.
It was actually for a tag light. Her tag lights were non-functional.
Okay, and I assume you approached the passenger or the driver's side, since that would be the traditional way to approach the vehicle.
That's correct.
Okay, and so you first spoke with Melissa Neese, the driver and owner of the vehicle.
That's correct.
And
I'm actually not sure if she was the owner of the vehicle. She was the driver of the vehicle.
Okay, and at that point, did you ask for her ID?
I did.
Okay, and at that point, why didn't you just issue her a warning or a ticket for the no tail light and just release them?
Because she was actually issued a citation for the no tag light and released. But as a matter of investigation, I always ask passengers for their identification as well.
But why are we investigating? I mean, what reasonable suspicion, much less probable cause, did you have of my client doing anything wrong? He was just simply a passenger in the vehicle.
I don't need probable cause or reasonable suspicion to ask someone for their ID. It's
Well,
up to him to know whether he can give it to me or not.
Why are we even questioning him, though? I mean, you've got the driver, you've got the traffic violation. Why not just issue the warning or the ticket and release them? Why are we asking everybody in the car and the vehicle for ID?
Because I like to be thorough. You never know what you're going to find with a passenger. You don't know if he's going to have a warrant for his arrest or something else that needs to be addressed.
But you didn't even have reasonable suspicion of that. This is all just a shot in the dark. You're just guessing. You had no idea. You had no reasonable suspicion of any criminal activity or wrongdoing with my client at that point.
That's incorrect. In my report, I noted that the driver was extremely nervous. She was shaking. She was having trouble digging her ID out. Couldn't find her ID. Didn't actually give me an ID. She was cited for that as well. When I asked Mr. Adams for his identification, he dug around like he wanted it. And then there's also consensual questioning of the defendant. I'm allowed to ask questions. It's up to him to know whether he knows them or not.
I get this. Why are we even getting to that point, though? Why don't we just issue? Because there's no. If you can sit here and tell us that you had some reasonable suspicion of criminal activity, I get it. Like you smelled marijuana or you see blood dripping out of the trunk. There's none of that in here. You just say, as a matter of practice, you're going to start asking questions of everybody, illegally detaining them on the side of the road until you find something.
It's not an illegal detention. It was a consensual question. I asked him a question and he answered it.
They were being detained on the side of the road, correct? They weren't allowed to leave.
They were part of the traffic stop. That's correct.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
No redirect, Your
So
Honor.
do you have any redirect?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you have any other witnesses for the state?
No other witnesses, Your Honor.
Okay. Attorney Lane, do you have any witnesses?
No, Your Honor, just brief argument.
Okay, we're ready for closing arguments. Attorney Sullivan.
Yes, Your Honor. Officer Parks' testimony was clear that the defendant gave him a false name and that he gave permission to the officer to check in his pockets where the officer found the drug-related objects. The defendant acknowledged that he shoots methamphetamine, and there was green leafy substance that the officer also saw on the defendant, that based on his experience and training, he concluded reasonably that it was less than an ounce of marijuana. And as to the defense that there was no reason for the officer to even question the defendant to begin with, the defendant was under no legal obligation to answer the questions, and he did so voluntarily. So all of the information that was provided by the defendant to the officer was, if you'll excuse the pun, lawfully obtained.
Okay. Thank you. Attorney Lane.
Your Honor, we just briefly request that the evidence seized in this case, the marijuana charge, the drug-related objects, and even the questioning of my client should all be suppressed. This was an illegal detention. Certainly, he had the right to stop them and issue a warning or ticket to the driver of the vehicle, but my client was simply a passenger. He wasn't doing anything wrong. They didn't have any reasonable suspicion of him doing anything wrong. And so they shouldn't have been questioning him and keeping them detained on the side of the road until they could dig something up. So just based on that, we request that all the evidence and the warrants in this case be dismissed and suppressed based on an illegal search and seizure and unreasonable detention.
Okay. Okay. Based on the evidence at this stage, as you know, Attorney Lane, this is the preliminary hearing stage. Those motions may be appropriate for trial. However, I do find sufficient probable cause at the preliminary hearing stage to bind over all charges against Mr. Adams. That would be the possession of marijuana less than an ounce, the use and possession of drug-related items, as well as giving a false name and date of birth and address to a law enforcement officer. So those will all be bound over to state court. That will conclude the first appearance hearing for Mr. Adams this morning. And I would like to thank both parties for their presentation of their case. Thank you, Mr. Adams. So it appears the next case we have on the calendar scheduled for a hearing is going to be State of Georgia versus Bobby Lee Banks. Is that correct, Attorney Sullivan?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Okay.
Apologies, Your Honor.
Yes.
This is Officer Parks. May I be
yes,
excused?
thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's gonna be Banks, Your Honor?
Yes.
It's still on course.
Yes. I called over to Central. They said they're still on full on.
Yeah, hold everybody.
Hey. Hey.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Banks. This is your first. I'm sorry. This is your preliminary hearing before the Magistrate Court of Clayton County. I'm officially calling your case. First, we have warrant number 2023 WA09276 for the charge of criminal trespass. And then there's a second charge, warrant number 2023 WA09277 for the charge of obstruction of a law enforcement officer. The state will be represented by Attorney Jane Sullivan, and the defendant will be represented by Attorney Mark Lane. State, are you ready to proceed forward with your first witness? Attorney
Yes, Your
Sullivan?
Honor.
Okay.
At this time, the state calls Officer Parker.
I'm here, sir.
Officer Parker, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. Please put your hand down. What is your name?
Officer Cassandra Parker.
And by whom are you employed today?
The City of Atlanta Police Department, sir.
And did you work as a City of Atlanta police officer on the 28th of May, 2023?
Yes, sir, I did.
And on that date, were you assigned to the Atlanta airport?
Yes, sir, I was.
And as part of your duties, do you routinely patrol the airport?
Yes, sir, I do.
And as while you were working at the airport, did you encounter the defendant?
Yes, sir, I did.
Is he known to you from previous encounters at the airport?
Yes, sir, he is.
When you saw the defendant, what did you do?
When we encountered Mr. Banks, sir, we were conducting our nightly sweep of the airport because our hours of operation for non-ticketed passengers and non-employees is that the airport is closed to them in between the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning. And I encountered Mr. Banks around 1:10 p.m. while we were conducting that sweep.
Did you ask him if he worked at the airport?
Yes, sir, I did, as well as whether or not he had a flight, in which he answered no to both.
Did you instruct him that he had to leave the airport?
Yes, sir, I did several times.
Did he follow that instruction?
No, sir, he did not.
So he refused to leave?
Yes, sir, he did. I'm not sure if Mr. Banks was having some type of paranoid episode at the time. He when we encountered him and asked him the questions on whether or not he had a flight or if he was an employee, he stated no, and that he was going to tell us the truth, that people were trying to kill him because he had higher ups and state officials, doctors, lawyers that were trying to kill him, and he could not leave the airport, and he would not leave the airport.
Did you offer him a means by which he could leave the airport?
Yes, sir, we did. We offered Mr. Banks a ride to any destination that he of his so choosing that was a safe haven, whether it be a shelter and or hospital, in which he refused.
And at that time, did you then arrest him?
Yes, sir, we did. After trying to reason with Mr. Banks, he became more and more agitated, began yelling, screaming, tried to push past us. When we told him that he had to indeed leave the property, he could not stay there. And like I said, became agitated, started fighting with us. And that's why Mr. Banks was placed under arrest, because we gave him ample opportunities to leave and even gave him a means to do so.
Did you ask him for his name and date of birth?
Yes, sir, we did.
Did he give you correct information?
He didn't lie, sir. He didn't say anything. We actually were able, incident to him being detained, we found his license in a wallet. He didn't give us his name and date of birth.
And you charged him with criminal trespass and obstructing a law enforcement officer, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what was the basis for obstructing a law enforcement officer?
No problem, sir. It was him pushing past us when we were physically in his way, trying to stop him from leaving and trying to give him a means to leave. And then he also began to physically fight with us.
Nothing further of this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Can you turn on your witness?
Yes, good morning, Officer Parker.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. When you encountered Mr. Banks, did it seem like he understood your commands?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay, but you think that he was just intentionally defying your commands?
Yes, sir. Again, we encountered Mr. Banks on several occasions. He's one of our residentially challenged regulars at the airport, so he understands, sir.
But you also could tell that he was maybe having a bit of panic or confusion, maybe of being delusional.
Yes, sir. Something was definitely going on that night. We weren't sure whether or not he was on some type of substance, but he still understood commands, because when we said to stop initially, he listened. He answered our questions. So yes,
Okay.
sir. But something was definitely going on.
Okay, I guess that's kind of where it gets a little confused, because I don't know if we can say 100% sure if he's kind of in that mental state, if he actually did understand your commands.
I got you. That's what I meant. That's what I'm initiating. In the initial encounter, When we asked him to stop, come and talk to us, he listened, he stopped. When we asked him the question on whether or not he had a flight, whether or not he worked there, he answered. And then after that, it just seemed like it went downhill and he began to get more agitated. But the initial encounter, he was lucid and he could understand.
Was there any medical personnel called in to evaluate him?
Yes, sir, there was. We called an EMT after the scuffle to come in and speak with him. He answered all of their questions, as well as they checked for the injury that he said that he sustained.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Does the state have any other witnesses?
I gotta hear what they're saying.
Attorney Sullivan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I also add one more thing? We also did have a previous criminal trespass that we confirmed as well on file.
Okay. Attorney Sullivan, do you have any redirect? Attorney Sullivan.
I think he's muted. He don't know he's muted.
Attorney Sullivan, do you have any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor, no additional evidence.
Okay. Attorney Lane, do you have any witnesses?
No, Your Honor, and no argument. We just submit on the testimony.
Okay. Okay, I do find sufficient probable cause to bound over the two charges against defendant Bobby Lee Banks for the charge of criminal trespass, as well as the charge of obstruction of a law enforcement officer. That will be the order of the court today, and that will conclude the preliminary hearing for Mr. Banks. Thank both parties for their presentation of their case. Thank you. And deputies, we can move on to the next defendant. I believe I have on the calendar, which would be D'Angelo Sherrod Daniels. And Ms. Parker, Officer Parker, you're free to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm officially calling the state of Georgia versus D'Angelo for the charge for warrant number 2023 WA094514 for driving without insurance. Second warrant number is 2023 WA094552 for obstruction or hindrance display of a license plate. Third charge, warrant number 2023 WA09453 for the charge of driving with expired or invalid tag. And then warrant number 2023 WA09454, driving on a suspended or revoked license. Final charge, warrant number 2023 WA09455, obstruction of law enforcement officers. So those are the charges pending against you. Mr. Daniels, this is your preliminary hearing for today. My name is Judge Tamika West Bernard. The state will be represented by Attorney James Sullivan. And as you know, you're represented by Attorney Jonah Reisman. With that said, state, are you ready to proceed forward with your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Officer Ramos, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What is your name?
Officer Ramos.
By what law enforcement agency are you currently employed?
Forest Park Police Department.
Were you a Forest Park police officer on the 30th of May, 2023?
Yes.
And on that day, were you on routine patrol in the area of Ash Street?
Yes.
And as part of that routine patrol, did you notice a white Lincoln Continental with no tags?
Yes.
And based on that observation, what did you do?
I was stationary looking out for traffic, and when I was driving, I noticed a white Lincoln pass by me with no tags on. When I end up trying to go behind the vehicle went into a store, the Buddy's Mart parking lot. It was an unexpected maneuver he did, so I kind of just went by him. But while I was driving by him, the males in the car, you can see them turn back at me as if they was looking to see if I was going to pursue or keep going. So I kept going, and I parked further down the street to see if maybe they would get back in the car and come down further down Ash Street towards my direction, and I could conduct a traffic stop for the no tag. While I was observing them, they went back in the car. They reversed the car and reversed the car backwards into another parking lot in that same parking lot. And then they got out the vehicle and they was kind of just standing around. They ended up walking down the street, and they was walking up and down the street as if they was looking for something. So now I'm kind of suspicious on what they're up to. So I continued to observe what they was doing. So I pulled out and went down the street towards them. They was walking back to the car when I passed them, and then I parked further down at another intersection to watch them from another area. They went back to the car. The driver ended up leaving the car, and the passenger stayed with the car. And the passenger started walking towards me. And it seems like when he saw me, he walked back the other direction. So I asked for backup for another officer to assist me to make contact with the individuals that was in front of the store. When the officer arrived, we went to go make contact. When we made contact, they were standing in front of the store, and I asked them, what their name was, and I believe D'Angelo was saying that wasn't the car he was driving, and I said, I saw you driving the car, and I saw you get out the vehicle. So at that time, they refused to give their name. D'Angelo was with another officer. The passenger ran from me. I chased the passenger, and the other officer stayed with D'Angelo. I apprehended the passenger that was running. He was a juvenile. He didn't have any warrants. He was released back to his mother or aunt. And that's when we found out D'Angelo was wanted out of Douglas County. And then we ran the VIN on the vehicle, and it returned back, expired, no insurance, and his license was suspended.
And did you arrest the defendant on those charges?
Yes.
And what formed the basis for the criminal trespass charge?
You said what was the basis for the criminal trespass?
Yes, sir.
I don't believe I charged them with criminal trespass.
You're right. You're right. I stand corrected. I beg your pardon. Did you have the car towed?
Yes.
And you arrested Mr. Daniels for obstructing an officer, driving with a suspended or revoked license, and driving with no tag on the vehicle, and then the license plate being obstructed in some way. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I just charged him with the no tag displayed.
Did you ask him how he got the vehicle?
Yes, he said he bought it from the owner, but he didn't have a bill of sale. He didn't have any type of documentation that the car was in D'Angelo's name. So I advised him, I said, well, whenever you go to court, if you can find those documents, then provide that to the court and stating that, it's your vehicle. But it wasn't stolen, so I didn't charge him for any possession of a stolen car or nothing like that. But I didn't see anything to say that the car was in his name. But he's claimed that he just bought the car.
No more questions of this witness at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Attorney Riceman, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Officer Ramos. How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
So in regards to making contact with Mr. Daniels, you had stated that you noticed that there was no tag on the vehicle, but you proceeded to not pull him over at that moment.
Well, he made such a quick maneuver that if I would have made a maneuver, I probably would have, because I looked like he almost crashed into another car that was coming the other direction. So that's how quick he went in. So
Does your vehicle have lights and sirens?
Yes, it does.
So you could have conducted a traffic stop at that time, correct?
I mean, yeah, I could have turned back around and activated my lights and pulled them over in the parking lot while they was in the store. I mean,
But you decided to sit back and wait to see if they got back on the road. So at that point in time, he was no longer driving. Is that correct?
no, he was no longer driving, but I witnessed him drive on the public roadway in that vehicle.
Okay. And you said that there was no tag on the vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. And so as you were sitting there watching to see if they were going to get back in the vehicle and drive, you made contact because they were walking around.
No, I was watching them for a pretty long time, and they was walking up and down the street as if they was looking for something.
Like perhaps waiting for a ride?
I don't know. It looked like they was looking like, it didn't look like they was waiting on a ride.
Is it illegal to be walking back and forth on a sidewalk or in a parking lot?
Not. But on my grounds on reasonable suspicion to think that maybe they was up to something, yes, to further investigate, yes. The way they was moving.
What was the reasonable suspicion?
Because every time
they were walking around.
Every time they saw me.
I object to defense counsel constantly interrupting the witness without letting him answer the question that's been asked.
I agree. I was going to intervene myself. Please allow the witness to answer the question, Attorney Riceman, before moving forward with the second question or follow-up. Thank you.
My apologies, Your Honor. So Officer Ramos, what was the reasonable suspicion that you were saying that you had? My apologies.
The reasonable suspicion was, one, they was riding around with no tag, and two, they was walking up and down the street, and every time they saw me, they would avoid me.
Okay, but you didn't make contact until they were walking back and forth. Is that correct?
No, one of them, when they went back to the car, I passed by them. I left them alone, wasn't messing with them. And then the passenger stayed with the car, and then the driver left, and he walked towards my direction. When he saw me, when he got further enough to see me, he turned around and walked back to the car. So that doesn't look like somebody's waiting on somebody to pick him up.
Okay. Did you give Mr. Daniels the opportunity to search for a bill of sale at that time?
Yes, he told us that it was in his bag. His I believe his aunt came on scene, because at that time he was already in custody. And he told his aunt that the bill of sale, something was in his bag. We didn't find any bill of sale in the book bag that he stated that it was in. And when we searched the vehicle, we didn't find any bill of sale.
Okay. Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, Attorney Sullivan, you have any other witnesses?
No other witnesses and nothing further of this witness.
Okay, Attorney Riceman, defense, have any witness?
Your Honor, no witnesses, just argument.
Okay. Attorney Sullivan, you ready for argument?
Yes, Your Honor. Based on the testimony of the officer, there's sufficient evidence for the court to bind all charges over to state court, and that's what the state requests. Thank you.
Okay, Attorney Riceman.
Your Honor, at this time, the state has not provided probable cause as to the obstruction charge, nor the obstructing or hindering a display of the license plate. The officer himself testified that there was no license plate, so therefore nothing could have been hindered. So at this time, we'd just sit there and ask that the judge find on that.
Okay, I don't have an obstruction charge. I have I do see it's obstruction or hindrance of I guess you said there was no display of a license plate. With that said,
the obstruction charge was when we asked him for his name and he refused to give his name. And one officer, he started to become irate. So the other officer wrote a supplemental to that.
Your Honor,
he had put him
at this time, the evidence has been closed.
That's correct. But what I have here is no insurance, display of license plates, expired registration, and driving on a suspended license. Those are the charges I have before me. I do find sufficient probable cause to bind over all charges to state court. That will be the order of the court today, and that will conclude the preliminary hearing for D'Angelo Daniels. I believe, thank you, Mr. Daniel. That will conclude your preliminary hearing for today. I believe that will conclude all the cases that was scheduled for a hearing today. Is that correct, Attorney Sullivan?
Let me check my calendar for a moment, Your Honor,
Okay.
please. It was Mr. Hammonds who waived his preliminary hearing?
Yes, let me just confirm with the jail. Were you able to obtain, deputies, were you able to obtain the signed waiver from Mr. Hammond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you'll send that over when we conclude the calendar for today?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So yes, correct, Attorney Sullivan.
Your Honor, what was the disposition of the state versus Nigel Raheem King, position 32, well, 32 on my calendar.
32, okay.
Your Honor, I believe that was reset to July 18th.
Yeah, it's not 32 on my calendar, but let me check real quick.
Position number 28.
Okay, 28. I have mine as 28, but I do remember that being on the calendar. Let me see if that's a reset.
That he was an inmate on loan.
Yes, correct. So he was on loan, so we reset that one. Anyone else, Attorney Sullivan?
Your Honor, no more cases for the state to address this morning.
Okay. Okay, well, that will conclude the preliminary hearing calendar for this morning. Deputy